Well, thank you for joining us on this special occasion of Israel's Independence Day. We're really pleased that Vivian Aisen from the Israeli Embassy in London has joined us today to answer your questions. And we thank you for those questions that have been sent in by our supporters and friends across the UK. And we'll be asking some tricky questions as we move forward. But I first of all want to welcome Vivian. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate everything that the Israeli Embassy does in the UK. And we know you're often, well, pleasure to have you as always. And we really appreciate all your support for CUFI. We've worked together on different things in the past, and we'll continue to do so once this blockade is over. And we'll be out there getting around the country just like you do, promoting Israel and giving a positive message about Israel. And I want to remind everybody, whilst we are in lockdown and most of the attention is focused on the coronavirus, we at CUFI are still supporting Israel, speaking out for Israel. We're making sure that the voice gets heard because the enemies of Israel are still out there doing their evil stuff as well. So we want to make sure that you stay alert, stay connected to CUFI, stay connected to the Israeli Embassy to keep up with current news. So thank you for that. So my first question, Vivian, is from my dear wife, Remini. And she asked the question, do you think that the incredible way Israel has been working with the Palestinians during this coronavirus pandemic will have a positive impact in future relations?
Yes, so thank you so much for having me here today, Des. And yes, it's a nice way to enjoy the holiday, celebrating together Yom Ha'atzmaut. So thank you for that, for the opportunity. Regarding the work of Israel with the Palestinian Authority and in Gaza, Israel has been active in four main fields. Israel has provided kits, testing kits, PPE kits, and disinfectants and other medical equipment. Israel has been training medical doctors, and Israel has assisting the hospitals and the clinics, preparing them for the outbreak. And we are also producing and distributing information for the population. Israel has been praised for the work we have been doing with the PA, the cooperation we have been doing with the PA, and also the work we have been doing in Gaza. Although in Gaza, it's much more complicated than in the PA because Gaza is governed by Hamas, which is a terror organization, and Israel doesn't have direct talks with Hamas. So all the work in Gaza has been done alongside the WHO. But we do believe many people today are asking how it becomes that when it comes to a crisis of this size, from both sides, from the Palestinian side and from the Israeli side, how we are able to cooperate when there is a crisis, why we are not able to cooperate during normal times. And yeah, I do believe that the coronavirus is gonna give us a new opportunity to engage more and more and cooperate more and more with our Palestinian neighbors. And I hope that this new engagement will allow us to reach, in the end of the day, peace in the Middle East.
Good. Now, I didn't give you the opportunity to explain a bit about what you do at the embassy. So maybe before I hand over to Alistair to ask you some further questions, maybe you'd like to share a bit about what you do at the embassy in normal times.
So I'm the director of the Public Diplomacy Department. And public diplomacy is all about engaging with the community. It's all about relations between the Embassy of Israel and the wider community in the UK. So under my portfolio, I made many things. We oversee relations between the embassy and faith communities and ethnic communities in this country. So the relations with the Christian community is very important to us. We try to engage with Christians from all denominations, also people from other religions, but specifically with CUFI, I'm talking about the Christians, and that's what we do. We reach out to all the Christian denominations, we engage with them, we have conversations with them. This is one of the things that we do, and with many others.
Thank you. Yeah, we really appreciate everything you do. We've certainly enjoyed you being there. We hope you'll be there for a long time yet. So now I'm going to hand over to Alistair now. Alistair has some questions from our viewers. Alistair Kirk's our development officer at CUFI. So Alistair, over to you.
Thank you, Des. And yes, happy Independence Day for today. And I just want to have my thanks for you joining us. Also, we received a plentiful number of questions from our supporters. So we're going to try and get through as many of those as we can. And thank you to all those who have submitted questions. So adding to what you say, I mean, we've been at CUFI, we've been wanting to highlight the great work and cooperation that Israel has been having with the Palestinians, and sadly, that isn't seen on our mainstream media. So we play our small part in trying to make that more widely known. But this question is regarding the media, and it's from Sally. Sally would like to know if you think Israel is treated fairly in the media. Mm-hmm. Sally says, I feel the UN is very biased against Israel, and that the BBC seems to have a hidden agenda regarding reporting of events in Israel. What do you think?
So yes, Sally, I agree with you. I think that Israel is perceived unfairly by the media. I think that the media is very biased. And this is because today, if you want to see yourself as a progressive person, one of the main requisites to be a progressive person is to criticize Israel. So the media is very critical of Israel, and many people that want to be perceived as progressive, they are critical of the state of Israel. And it's not only that, it's also related to antisemitism somehow, because antisemitism creates a kind of suspicion. There's a suspicion around the way Israel acts, and people believe that Israel has hidden reasons for acting in a certain way. So they start, this is all about conspiracy theories. So they promote lies and they promote fake news about Israel. And this is what make all the anti-Semitism around us. But I think that in general, the journalists and the public, they lack a knowledge about history and about things that are happening and happen in the Middle East in the past. And there is no enough patience. People are overwhelmed, and there's not enough patience to go deeper and understand the complexity of the situation. They don't have enough knowledge to understand the complexity. So in all this stupidity that is around us, people journalists in general use a very simplistic and very superficial narrative that from our point of view is indeed very biased.
Yeah, I would certainly like to add to that, because certainly when you see the reports on the news, you often see that the journalists are reporting from somewhere other than the actual place things are happening in Israel. So it's more hearsay than reality. Mm-hmm. And they don't give any background information to their stories either, do they? So it's a sad sort of state of our news at the moment.
And they believe that if you want to be a progressive person, you need to support who is perceived as the victim or as the weak part, without taking into consideration anything that that the other part or the other part has done to cause this situation. It's very complex. It's not that simple.
No, I agree.
Mm. Well, let's hope there will be some change. We certainly do hope for that. And of course, one of the main themes when it comes to the news media coverage is when there is a terrorist attack against Israel. And of course, we know that there are many episodes of rockets being fired into Israel, and they perhaps don't receive the kind of coverage that we believe they warrant. And the next question is regarding terrorist attacks. It's from Paul. He says, why does Israel take so many attacks from terrorists without making any substantial retaliation? For example, removing the terrorist leadership with extreme prejudice.
So it's always important to remember that the main goal of Israel is to live in peace with its neighbors. And over the years, we've been able to make peace with two of our most fiercest neighbors, Egypt and Jordan. With the Palestinian has been a little complicated, especially in Gaza, because Hamas is a terrorist group that promotes the destruction of the state of Israel. So we don't really have a partner in Gaza. The Israeli army is one of the most, maybe the most ethical army in the world. And we try to minimize the numbers of injuries and deaths when you are working on a retaliation. But it's very complicated to do that when our opponents don't share the same values, the same ethical values that we have, and they use the civilians as life shields and built headquarters and military bases in schools and in hospitals. But Israel, we shouldn't forget that Israel is a democratic country, and the public opinion, it's very, very important in Israel. And I don't think that there is an homogeneous agreement about what should be done with Gaza. Many people in Israel believe that Israel needs to use much more force that we have been using till now. But other people believe that we have tried force and it doesn't help. In 2008 and 2012, 2014, we had military operations in Gaza and they didn't solve the problem. So the public opinion is divided on that. We really don't know what would be the best solution for Gaza. And let's not forget that the last government fell around the issue of Gaza. The previous Minister of Defense, Avigdor Lieberman from Israel Beitenu, couldn't agree with the moderate policy of the Prime Minister Netanyahu regarding Gaza. And he has resigned because Netanyahu didn't want to use more force in Gaza. And after his resignation, we had a row of 3 elections, and that finally, by now, soon, we hope we are going to have a government. So it's not straightforward, the answer to this question.
No. Yeah. Well, no, thank you for that helpful answer, I think, for what is a very big question. You mentioned there about shared values, or the values really that seem to be sort of as a foundational in this conflict. And I mean, we would recognise here in the UK that we have certain shared values with the state of Israel, or we should have those values, which is one of the key things to, of course, the UK standing with Israel, particularly when they're facing terrorist attacks. But this next question is kind of related to those values, because there's a great concern about the values that are being presented to the young people in Gaza. And it seems to be very foundational in terms of the attitudes towards Israel by some. And this question is from Angela, who has a question about the issue of the Palestinian school curriculum. She says that she's seen some excerpts, and I think we've published different excerpts over time as well in various forms, and they are alarming. If you see some of the excerpts from some of the Palestinian curriculum, school curriculum. And she says that as a teacher of many years' experience, I was appalled by every single part of this document, which she's referring to, which is fundamentally conceived to foment hatred and violence in the hearts and minds of young children against Israel. My question is simply, how do we change this situation? If there is ever to be any hope of change in the Middle East, this curriculum needs to be challenged. I'm sure we will all agree with that. But then she says, what can we do to help you do this?
Yeah. So yes, we are very much aware of this situation, and it looks like the Palestinians are indoctrinated from a very, very young age. They are indoctrinated about, you can see in the books, searches of in different schools in the PA and Gaza have shown that the schools are using, all of the schools are using books that delegitimize the right of Israel to exist. They demonize the Jews, they demonize Israel, and the only solution, according to these books, to the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians is through violence, a total absence of any possibility of solving the problem through peace. And if you open the books, you can see maps of Palestine from the West Bank to the Mediterranean. Israel doesn't exist in those maps. And instead of Israel, you can see written there occupation. The Israelis and the Jews are perceived as the source of all the evil of the world, as aggressive, as people that share only hate. And it is complicated because all the money for those books come from the money that support the educational system of the Palestinian Authority in Gaza comes from UNRWA and the donor countries. And the donor countries, many of them are not aware of the situation. And I suppose that, I know for sure that the UN main goal is to promote peace in the Middle East. And those books and the educational system in the PA and Gaza are doing exactly the opposite. They are not promoting peace in the Middle East. They are promoting a total lack of hope for the young generation. And learning from these books during the time that they are in school, they will grow to believe that the only way to have a happy life in the future is to destroy Israel. So our main role is to create awareness in the donor countries. And the way to do that is through lobbying days, writing to MPs, signing petitions, and speak out, tell those stories, speak out about what is going on there. So people in general, the public will be aware, and the government will be able to do something and change its resolution to support this educational system that has failed in promoting peace, or having the Palestinians accountable for the educational system that they have created, that is an educational system of indoctrination, pure indoctrination against Israel and the Jewish people.
Well, certainly CUFI will be doing everything we can to advocate against these things, certainly when it comes to the funding from the UK that goes into education in these territories. And we certainly don't want to see the hatred continue.
Yes. Certainly. Well, thank you, Vivian. And our next question, switching from that to the US peace plan. A question from Alan. Will Israel be able to annex parts of Judea and Samaria according to the American peace plan by 1st of July 2020?
So yes, we finally have reached a coalition agreement between the party Blue and White and its allies, and between the Likud and its allies. And according to this agreement, we are going to have, we say in Hebrew, pariteti, an equal government. I don't know if there's a word in English for this, but it's an equal government. We're going to have 18 ministers from Blue and White and its allies, and 18 ministers from Likud and its allies. Yes, it's a huge number of ministers, 36 in total. It's huge. It's huge. But because it's the same number, every decision inside the government will need to be taken through mutual agreement. And one of the points of the coalition agreement is that this government is an emergency government and do not take any decisions regarding anything that is not related to coronavirus in the first 6 months of its establishment. The only issue, the only exception for this clause that has been agreed is the issue of the annexation. According to the agreement, in the 1st of July, starting from the 1st of July, the government will be able to discuss and take a decision regarding the annexation of the Jordan Valley. Now, they will need to find a mutual agreement around this, and I assume that they will take into consideration the impact of this decision in the international forum and the local impact of this decision. But yes, starting from the 1st of July, they can start dealing with annexation, talking about annexation.
Right. So that's going to happen sooner than expected in a sense, because we all thought coronavirus may put an end to that or delay that sort of process.
So when President Trump presented his plan and Bibi Netanyahu wanted immediately to annex the Jordan Valley, the American government came and said that no, we need to wait till we have a new government in Israel to take this kind of decisions. But now we do have a new government and they will be able to decide, they will need to decide together. I assume that there are different perspectives inside the government regarding the annexation. They will need to find something that will please everyone.
Good.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Vivian. That certainly brings some clarification to that situation, and it's good to see that there's been some resolve after a couple of attempts, 3 attempts, to get through the election breakthrough. So that is good, and so thank you for that clarity there. Another question. This is from Lynn. Lynn asks a question that I'm sure is on all of our hearts as we're watching this. How can we better help in the fight against anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiment?
So yes, this is an important question, and the best way to help is to speak out in every forum and in every place whenever you can. I think that the Christian support for our cause is something very, very important. And I think that when Christians speak out against anti-Semitism, it has a double effect, because we know that the roots of the anti-Semitism, the oldest anti-Semitism in the world, its roots go back to the church and to theological, to Christianity and to theological beliefs from many, many years ago. So there's a special importance to have Christians speaking out about anti-Semitism. And we believe that today the anti-Zionism is only a modern kind of anti-Semitism that we need to fight together. Chief Rabbi Sachs, the previous Chief Rabbi Sachs, explained and said that in medieval times, they hated us because they hated our religion. During World War II, they hated us because they hated our race. And in modern times today, they hate us because they hate our state. So anti-Zionism is the new modern anti-Semitism, and it's important to speak out, always to speak out about it. This is the only way to fight it.
Certainly at CUFI, we've, from our very beginning in 2015, anti-Semitism was one of the biggest challenges for us. And we've constantly spoken out against anti-Semitism. But what we're trying to do, obviously, through our support base across the country, is we're trying to encourage Christians to speak out. This isn't a time to be an observer from the sidelines. We as Christians do need to speak out forcefully, and the church certainly needs to take up that challenge. In fact, the church needs to be challenged in these days, because even within the church, sadly, there is anti-Semitism. Perhaps mainly because of ignorance, but there's certainly a massive role for Christians at this time to speak out and stand up for Israel and the Jewish people.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we definitely want to see a turning in the tide of anti-Semitism in this country and throughout the world. So I'm sure all those who are watching this are committed to that cause. And of course, we're standing against anti-Zionism
by
as well.
the way, it's important also to emphasize that now with the coronavirus outbreak, we have seen a rise of anti-Semitism related to the most old beliefs that the Jews bring the plague, and especially social media. But we believe that after the coronavirus outbreak will be over and all the economical challenges that this lockdown will bring to us, we believe that people will look for a scapegoat, and we will find in the Jews the perfect scapegoat, and in Israel, the perfect scapegoat to the economical difficulties that we all are going through, and we all will go through after the coronavirus outbreak.
Certainly, it's so sad that there seem to be lessons in some sections of our society, where lessons haven't been learned. I mean, I saw on our news over the weekend protests in Germany against the measures which have been put in place, the social distancing measures. But it wasn't. It was interesting that on the clip on the BBC, it didn't show this, but on another news channel, it showed that they were protesting with that horrendous conspiracy theory that you mentioned in attributing blame to the Jews. I mean, it's just incredible that's even going through people's minds, but also to the lengths at which you're prepared to go in order to proclaim that anti-Semitism, to breach government regulations in order to get your anti-Semitic conspiracy theories aired, is incredible, and it is so sad, and we have to confront it with the truth.
Yes, and although we have had a cooperation with the Palestinian Authority in terms of the coronavirus outbreak, we see elements there, anti-Semitic elements there. We've seen a lot of conspiracy theories. It's actually blood libel, saying that the Israelis brought the coronavirus into the Palestinian Authority on purpose because we want to kill all the Palestinians. And yes, we are helping them with one hand, and we need still to defend ourselves with the other hand, because we also got rockets fired into Israel a couple of days ago, a week ago, from Hamas. And this is the last thing that we need. We are going through a crisis in Israel, through a very difficult situation. And the last thing we need now is a threat from outside. And Hamas also warned Israel last week, because there was a disagreement around testing kits, number of testing kits that will be sent to Gaza. And Hamas warned Israel that if we don't send the exact number of testing kits that they think they need to receive, they are going to fire rockets into Israel. So it's a cooperation from one side with many elements that continue to be anti-Semitic and anti-Israel and promote this kind of discourse inside the Palestinian Authority, of course in Gaza and around the world.
Well, Well, thank you, Vivian. We're going to switch, well, from a very serious topic which we've been talking about to grocery shopping now. A question from another Angela. She says, can we have more imported imports from Israel, food-wise? I occasionally come across peppers and potatoes, but not much else, which is a shame. Now, we recognize that you personally, Vivian, might not be able to alter the peppers and potatoes import specifically, but it's a good question because behind this is actually the very important thing of Israel-UK bilateral imports and exports. And am I right in saying that actually that is on the increase and that we are seeing a strengthening bilateral ties, and perhaps we will see more imports and exports in the future, and not necessarily on the grocery aisles either, but in many other ways. So perhaps can you just enlighten us on that issue?
So yes, thank you, Alistair. We have had many reasons to celebrate this week. We are celebrating 3 very important dates for the State of Israel. We've celebrated the centennial of San Remo, which actually gave international recognition to the Balfour Declaration of 1917. We are celebrating 72 years of the independence of the State of Israel today. But today we are also celebrating 70 years of diplomatic relations between our countries, between Israel and the UK. And it is a very, very happy moment for us. And our relations have gone from strength to strength and continue to enhance from year after year. And one of the main fields of these relations is really the bilateral trade. We know that the UK is the third most important bilateral partner to Israel after the United States and China. And it is indeed the most important bilateral trade partner to Israel in the whole Europe. The bilateral trade has reached in the last year an amount of over 8 billion pounds. But this trade is not based on potatoes and peppers. Actually, the products, agricultural products exported by Israel, they are less than 5% of the total Israeli exports. For the UK, the main imports are on pharma products, medicines, and it's always nice to remember that 1 out of 6 medications prescribed by the NHS, they are medication that comes from Israel. This is mainly because we may have heard about Teva, the biggest drug company in Israel, who produces and exports generic medication. And it is believed that these generic medications that are sold here in the UK save billions of pounds to the NHS, and also billions of pounds to the pockets of every Brit here in the UK. So we hope that these relations continue to grow and increase. People thought that maybe because of the Brexit, we would see an impact in the bilateral trade between our countries, but it doesn't look like that. Over the years, we've seen an increase year after year in bilateral trade. And Israel was also the second after Switzerland, country to sign a post-Brexit agreement with the UK. It happened in 2019. And yes, the relations are they go further. It's not only about trade relations, but trade relations are definitely very, very important for both countries.
Well, it's becoming increasingly difficult to boycott Israel, which is the way we want it. So that's really encouraging, and you know, we trust that those bilateral agreements are going to increase and strengthen, especially when the Brexit is sort of picked up again in full motion. Hopefully, we will continue to see that going from strength to strength.
The BDS doesn't have any effect from the point of view of the trade. It may have some kind of public effect, but it's not any real thing that threats Israel in any way. And of course, not the trade relations between the two countries.
Now, I saw the other day, actually, one of the leaders of the BDS movement was actually assuring his support base that if Israel comes up with a solution to the coronavirus problem, it would be okay to take the medicine.
Yes, the vaccine. I heard about the vaccine.
The vaccine, yes.
The vaccine, yes.
Oh, yes.
On that subject of the vaccine, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, carry on, Des.
No, it's interesting, the hypocrisy in that they would advocate that people boycott Israel on so many different things, but if it suits their purpose, then it's okay not to boycott. And that's obviously the case with lots of other things that Israel produces. They inadvertently use them all the time, but don't think it's wrong to boycott on other issues.
Yes.
And so I was just going to say that on the subject of the coronavirus, back to coronavirus, Israel, of course, has been putting a lot of effort into trying to find a way of treating the coronavirus, looking into a vaccination. And of course, other countries have been doing so as well. But Israel has brought so much to the world in terms of its innovation in pharmaceuticals, as you mentioned, and in tech. Where do you think, or how do you think Israel might be able to contribute in terms of perhaps whether it be a vaccine or whether it be other forms of being able to help get us through this difficult period?
Yeah, so we know that many countries are on the run in order to find a vaccine or a treatment to the coronavirus. The UK is one of them. The Imperial College and the Oxford University. And I'd like to point out that there is a cooperation and collaboration, scientific and academic collaboration between the countries also on this field. But relating to Israel, we have 4 teams researching right now for a vaccine. I don't have a timetable. I don't know what's going to happen, but there are teams in the Technion University, in Tel Aviv University, in the Israel Institute for Biological Research, and in the Institute Migal, which is an institute in the Galilee, in the north of Israel. Now, each one of these teams has different approach. One of them is dealing with the structure of the virus. The other one is researching the proteins. Each one of them are trying to find a different solution. Migal, as an example, has 4 years of experience in research for a vaccine for poultry against a virus which is very similar to the coronavirus. It's probably a brother or a sister, a sibling of the coronavirus. And we know that the Israel Institute for Biological Research has started already animal trials for the vaccine that they have produced. And we know that the Tel Aviv University was granted a patent in the United States. So not sure who's gonna be the first one to find the vaccine, not sure that it's gonna be in Israel, but definitely a lot of work and effort has been put in Israel around everything related to coronavirus, and a lot of cooperation with other countries as well, which is very positive.
Fantastic. Well, Vivian, we've come to the end of the supporters' questions. Again, I'd like to thank all those supporters who have submitted questions. We've got through as many as we possibly can within the time that we have. So thank you very much, Vivian, for your answers. And I'll hand back to Des.
Well, yes, thank you, Vivian. Thanks for joining us today. I know it's a special day for you, but we really appreciate it. And we appreciate all you do, especially at the embassy. We thank you and give our regards to everyone there. And stay safe. Stay safe and stay secure.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today. And happy Independence Day, Yom Ha'atzmaut Sameach, and hope to see you all in life after the outbreak.
Amen to that. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.